what is the best weight of syrup to use, and what times of the year should you use it? A lot of people talk about 1-to-1 syrup and 2-to-1 syrup. Those are the most common mixtures. Talking about by weight, 1 part sugar to 1 part water, or 2 parts sugar to 1 part water for a thick syrup. So the general thinking is that at different times of the year, you need different mixtures, just different concentrations of sugar. So the general thinking is that in the springtime, 1-to-1 syrup stimulates the queen to lay more, the hive to produce more in the spring buildup, being that 1-to-1 is somewhat closer to the sugar concentration of nectar that they're going to forage for naturally. So the other thought is that in the wintertime, going into winter, the bees need to have a lot of energy stored, and that the thicker syrup, the 2-to-1 syrup, is better going into wintertime so that they can store that into the combs instead of just eating it, you know, like they would in the springtime to build up. So just to go a little bit further, I do most of my feeding inside the hive. So I'll take a quart jar with holes in the lid, and I'll set that on top of the inner cover. Our bee yard is real close. It's 500 feet behind the house, so I can go out there multiple times a week and change out these jars, which is real easy to do. So I don't use any larger type of feeders. You can buy these lids that have the little holes punched in them already. And there's like 13 holes there, and they're real small. They're like 30 thousandths holes. If you're gonna make your own, then if you use a hive nail for people that used to nail, or frame nail, for people that used to nail their frames instead of stapling, these little frame nails, they're about 53 thousandths. So that makes a pretty good hole in the lid. If you don't have frame nails, you can use a 1/16 drill and drill some holes, but that's what I do. I've got these quart jars with 5 or 6, maybe 7 holes in there. And I feed inside the hive on top the inner cover with a box around it to keep everything kind of warm. And that's what I do. The other thing that I do is nobody says that your inner covers have to have that oblong hole in them. That's kind of a legacy thing from a long time ago for a porter bee escape. I don't even know anybody that uses those anymore. So I make my own inner covers, and they all have a round hole that the jar fits in the round hole. So that's what I have. Also, you'll notice this has a screened area on the side of my inner covers. That's where I put my pollen patties. So sugar water and protein. So that's just me. That's what I do, but I do pretty well stick to 1-to-1 in the spring, 2-to-1 going into fall so that they can store it. And I'll usually add some, maybe not honeybee healthy, but that stuff with the essential oils in it, I think is good to maybe control some of the fermentation, especially when the weather's warm. The other thing I like to add to the syrup is some micronutrients. I think Optima is one brand, and it doesn't take very much. The stuff's expensive, but you use very little of it to put in your sugar water. And I think it's good for the bees. I was stayed on top of that last spring, and our bees were in really good shape when they came out of winter this year. So that's what I do for sugar syrup: 1-to-1 spring, 2-to-1 going into the fall if you need to feed them during that time period.